The trailer for the forthcoming film Wicked for Good, the second and final installment of the story of Elphaba, the girl with green skin, and the unlikely friendship that she has with popular girl Glinda, just dropped, and it's gay. It's so very gay, and I need to talk to you about it. Okay, first up, I wanted to say that I watched Wicked years ago, and in a general sense, I know what happens. I won't give any spoilers until the end, and I'll let you know when I'm about to spoil things. But apart for the gay song of For Good, I don't remember a whole heap. But what I do know is that Wicked for Good is already gayer than the second half of the stage play, and they were not shy about showing it in this trailer. I've already covered how gay part 1 was in a review that I did. I'll link that in the title cards. And then I also did a somewhat deep dive into the queer history of Oz and how Ariana Grande is being a captain for a sapphic reading of Glinda's character, which I will also link in the title cards. Okay, so let's go through this trailer and tease out what has been given. Okay, so the first thing that I'm noticing is that we get a shot of Glinda, who is in her wedding dress. And we know that she's in her wedding dress because later in the trailer, we're going to see her walking down the aisle with this massive train. She appears to be walking towards Fiyero. And yet here she is on what appears to be her wedding night. She is alone in this room, and she goes outside to call Elphaba in. And the way that she talks to Elphaba when she says, "Come in, otherwise the monkeys will get you," suggests that she's used to having Elphaba come and visit her like this. This is something that she's fully expecting, and she almost sounds like that annoyed girlfriend of being like, "Oh, Elphaba, just come inside." So that's the first thing that I've noticed. She also uses her full name, which makes it sound like Elphaba is in a little bit of trouble. Glinda does not look happy with her, and it almost feels like maybe they have had something of a disagreement or a fight. And then Glinda turns around and Elphaba is there standing in the shadows, which is very much giving me Superman and Lois Lane vibes of how Superman would fly to Lois Lane's balcony, also kind of giving me Supercorp vibes as well. Then we're getting some voiceover about how Elphaba is saying that there is some beef between her and the wizard, which of course is going to be part of the main thrust of the second part of the story. And then we see Glinda putting the crown on her head that she was wearing in No One Mourns the Wicked, which we saw at the beginning of the first movie. Glinda is clearly in some kind of palace, whereas we see that Elphaba appears to be in some kind of forest, and she has grown herself a kind of lair where we see her weaving magic from the grimoire. These two images juxtapose against each other to show how very far apart they are in terms of circumstances and probably also in terms of state of mind. We now learn that Fiyero is heading the hunt for Elphaba, and that Madame Morrible believes that Elphaba is not going to be able to elude them for too much longer, which means that she is being actively hunted. We then see inhabitants of the Emerald City with basically pitchforks and lights coming for Elphaba, and Glinda is looking down from her balcony as these people march through the streets looking incredibly angry, and a voiceover of her saying, "Elphaba, they're coming for you." So we know from the first shot that Elphaba has been visiting Glinda. I don't know if this is only happening once or if this is regular for them. I kind of like the idea that it would be regular, you know, like the clandestine lover coming to see her girlfriend, but she's exiled, so she can only come under the cover of night. And there is always the danger of them meeting because, of course, Elphaba could be taken at any time. This lends credence to the idea that Glinda is wanting to change the system from within. And this is where we get a little bit of the For Good song. As I said, this is the gayest song of the entire story. I think it's the most anticipated song of the second installment, and I'm so curious to see what they're going to do with it. I have no doubt that they will absolutely hit it out of the park. And as the song For Good starts to play, we see Glinda appears in her pink dress that she was wearing in No One Mourns the Wicked, and she comes to the place where she and Elphaba were separated at the end of the first film, which is so very gay of her. She's clearly missing Elphaba so deeply that she has come back to this spot, and we can only assume at this point in the story that she has found out that Elphaba has died at the hands of Dorothy, and she's come to mourn the woman that she loves. So the shot of her walking up the stairs with the light falling onto her, we see that pop of pink in her dress, and everything else around her is in darkness. It's a very beautiful shot, and it's very evocative of Glinda's emotional state. Elphaba is then pulling out this now tattered Emerald City guide that she was given by Glinda just before they went off to the Emerald City together, and she opens up the page to read the inscription that Glinda had written, which was, "I hope you get what your heart desires." It speaks to how Elphaba is also longing for Glinda just as Glinda is longing for her, which again is so very gay of them. Mutual gay pining is going on, and I love how their friendship is being centered at the heart of this trailer, which, given the spoiler that I'll talk about in just a little bit, is not necessarily what you would assume. And then we're treated to a shot that we've already seen in the previous trailer, which is Elphaba sitting in a field with Glinda by her side and her laying her head on Elphaba's shoulder and closing her eyes. The way Glinda is holding Elphaba's arm and laying her head on her shoulders is giving such strong romantic vibes, and it seems like this is a memory that Elphaba is remembering, a callback to the days where they were at university together. So really giving that sense of longing for each other from both of them. And then we fade into Glinda sitting next to Elphaba and saying, "Imagine what we could do together," which is a mirror of what Elphaba had said to Glinda at the very end of the previous film. And really, they're not just talking about what could they do together to change Oz and to make it a better place, but also what could they do together if they were to actually become a couple. At least that's how I'm reading it. There's the image of Glinda walking up the aisle with her massively long train with yellow butterflies floating around her, with Fiyero looking up to see his bride. And I think it's so interesting that Glinda, with the dress that she's wearing, it looks slightly asymmetrical right at the bust area, which very much looks heart-shaped. And I feel like the reason why they've gone for this asymmetrical look is because Glinda is walking up the aisle towards Fiyero, which is not the person that she loves. The person that she loves absolutely is Elphaba. And so the heart is off kilter. It's slightly wonky because she's not being truthful about who she is and who she really loves. At least that's my interpretation. And this is all done with the song For Good playing over all of these images, giving the strong sense that the truly important relationship in Glinda's life is Elphaba, definitely not Fiyero. We then cut to Glinda and Elphaba sitting on Elphaba's broom, but it's like being set up as if it was a swing, and their hands are interlaced. They're not just holding hands, they've interlaced their fingers, and all around them are stars. It looks like maybe fireflies or glowworms. Such a romantic shot. Oh my god, what is even happening here? Everything about this trailer is so gay. And I wanted to point out that everything is in pink in this particular scene, which makes me think that this is something that Glinda has done for Elphaba. She has finally tapped into her own magic, and she is using it to create this beautiful romantic moment for her to share with Elphaba. I can't. It's too much. Speaking of color, it has not escaped my notice that as Glinda is walking down the aisle, there are two major colors that can be seen: pink and green. Even as we're being shown Glinda going to marry Fiyero, the whole framing of this trailer is to show us that this is not the right thing to be happening. The true love is between Elphaba and Glinda. And then we get the only interaction between Elphaba and Fiyero, which was being set up, as we know, as some kind of love story in part 1. Fiyero turns on the Wizard of Oz. So even though he was the head of the guards who were searching for Elphaba, it seems that he was doing it in order to find her, and then he defects. We have some kind of animal stampede that is going on, which looks like some kind of uprising of the animals against the inhabitants of the Emerald City. So we know we're going to get a continuation of the animal rights story that was happening in part 1, which was also very much linked to the story between Fiyero and Elphaba, right? Because Fiyero showed that he believes in animal rights just as much as Elphaba does. But then we're straight back to Elphaba and Glinda. Glinda is walking towards her bubble, again dressed in her pink dress from No One Mourns the Wicked. It appears that this is the moment that she goes floating off to Munchkinland to announce that Elphaba is dead. There's the voiceover, "It's time for both of us," and we cut to Elphaba saying those words. She is standing mightily close to Glinda. She leans in. It feels like they surely must be about to kiss. And if you look at Glinda, at the very last second of that shot, she looks down to Elphaba's lips. There's something very intimate about this moment. Could this be where we might get a kiss? Or am I just trolling myself? Now, the actual full sentence that they string together here is Elphaba saying it's time for both of us to fly, but the to fly part is clearly from an entirely different part of the movie. So I wonder what the actual end of that sentence is meant to be. We then get Elphaba saying to Glinda, "You're the only friend that I have ever had." Glinda does her little hair shake and says, "And I've had so many friends." I really love the way she delivers this line. It's so perfect. She looks absolutely devastated, and she's trying to cover for the fact that her heart has fallen out of her chest. And then in voiceover she says, "But only one that mattered." That is said as Glinda and Elphaba hug each other with tears running down their face, very much reminding me of the final sequence of the first film where they were separated. Again, we see them interlacing their fingers as they look over a desolate and dark landscape. I'm pretty sure that these images are from when they sing the song For Good to each other. And then we get a few action sequences of Elphaba flying monkeys, and the forest before we get the title card of Wicked pop up. So my first thoughts, as I said, is that they really centered the Elphaba and Glinda relationship in this trailer. And it's such an interesting juxtaposition for how Elphaba and Fiyero are framed. Okay, so spoilers here. So if you don't want to know what happens, click off. Elphaba and Fiyero are the ones who, in the second part of the stage play, get together. They're the couple, not Elphaba and Glinda, and yet the whole trailer is, just as it did in the first part, focuses on Glinda and Elphaba to the exclusion of what is meant to be this big love story, such as Elphaba and Glinda in a field with Glinda putting her head on Elphaba's shoulder, of them interlacing their fingers multiple times, of them sitting on the broom swing, watching these gorgeous lights all around them. The moment where Elphaba gets so close into Glinda's space, Glinda beseeching Elphaba to work together because of the good that they could do. The fact that Glinda has this off-kilter wedding dress in the shape of a wonky heart because, as I said, I don't think that she's being truthful about who she truly loves. She's marrying Fiyero out of obligation, out of expectation, which is a theme that was very strongly seeded throughout the first half. We're getting her going out onto the balcony to find Elphaba, who has come to visit her, and this doesn't seem to be a surprise. So I am very happy with what we got here. I feel like it is very promising. As to whether or not I think Elphaba and Glinda are actually going to go canon, I still don't think that that really is going to happen, but I feel like the story that we're going to see, at least very much for Glinda, is, as I said in my previous videos, very much one of compulsory heterosexuality. Glinda is very deeply closeted, and this is an epic love story that is unfolding between the two of them. And I also think that Elphaba loves Glinda, but her need to do the right thing, her need to help the animals and to fight against the fascism that has risen up in the world of Oz is so great that I think that it supersedes everything else. And so with Glinda on the opposite side of this battle, if you will, I don't know if that can be bridged through the story that is being told. However, I do think that this is a love story with the background of the fascism that comes between them. So I maintain that I don't think we're going to get an overt textual acknowledgement of the love between Elphaba and Glinda, at least not in a sapphic sense. But I also think that it's going to be so heavily queer-coded that it's undeniable that it is a love story between two women. And I love that for this massive franchise that has been so beloved by the queer community. I would love to hear your thoughts about the trailer and how you interpret all the scenes that we've been given. Have you got any theories about what you think is going to happen in part 2? And I will see you next time, lady lovers.